Guys, I have to come clean about something. I don't like beat 'em up games. I didn't think I'd have to make a YouTube apology so early.
I've made a severe and continuous.
Well, I should probably rephrase that. I didn't like beat 'em up games. I'm a changed man. For those of you who do not know the history of Streets of Rage 4, it was originally going to be a 2.5D rendition of the series on the Dreamcast until it was scrapped due to, get this, Sega of America not knowing what Streets of Rage was, so they scrapped it. Its existence was in limbo for years until Gerd Crush Games, people who actually know how to make beat 'em ups, got the go-ahead by Sega to make this very game. Now personally, when I had played the Streets of Rage games on various Genesis collections, I actually wasn't much of a fan of the original trilogy, which I know must sound like I'm committing an actual crime. I like them in an arcade environment, but I've never really wanted to sit down and play one on any given day. Every time I had played one in the past, I ended up either getting bored by the repetitive nature of the gameplay, or I would just rather play a normal stage-by-stage platformer. My experience with games I actually like in a genre pretty much begins and ends with the GameCube Teen Titans game, which should be pretty telling of my willingness to play these. Getting back on topic, I went into this game with an open mind since I had heard about how much the community adored this game. So with that, what do I think of this entry? It's really fun. I can't really fully explain what about this specific one made me love it so much when compared to the previous entries, but I'll at least try my best to explain. What makes this game click for me? Well, remember when I said earlier about the gameplay being repetitive and boring? Yeah, well scratch that, because apparently I'm a fucking idiot. Okay, yes, the gameplay is very repetitive in the fact that you do fight similar enemies over and over again with similar moves, unless you use a different character, but the part about it being unfun, well, I'm not sure if I'm just better at games these days or something, but the gameplay loop is pretty fun. The main source of enjoyment and biggest challenge of the game is maintaining control over the enemies. It can be very easy to get overwhelmed when there's even 2 enemies on screen, let alone 5 or 6. So you have to master the controls to fully overcome each level. The more you understand how to defeat each enemy type, the more satisfying clearing a room becomes. Now the thing that I think makes the gameplay loop go from good to great are the items. Now as much as you may think that you can win every fight with a jump kick and a trash can chicken, what might end up saving you in the end are the weapons that you can steal from the enemies. These are super satisfying to use due to the higher damage output, and become infinitely useful since you can throw them at the enemies that get a range attack, which can help greatly when trying to zone the enemies around you in order to clear a room easier. The game really feels like you have a lot of options to choose from, which helps it from feeling too stale even after long play sessions. That being said, if you aren't on high alert, you can very easily get cornered and get absolutely pummeled. The enemies are just as vicious as someone who heard that you don't like the Streets of Rage games. The bosses aren't pushovers by any means either. I just barely defeated the first boss when I was playing this game for the first time. Knowing when to run up and fight and when to back off and play defensive is imperative to succeeding. The only thing more impressive than the game are the graphics. Wow, are they stunning. The original Genesis graphics are great in their own, don't get me wrong, but in my opinion they're generically Genesis and aren't particularly memorable. But on the other hand, the comic book style this game went with is perfect for the series. It's super stylized, very detailed, and is the most logical step forward the series can take. And for a Switch game in particular, it looks fantastic. In fact, not to spoil anything, but it's probably the best looking game on this list. I was honestly surprised by how much fun I had with this one. And since I was curious, I decided to replay some Streets of Rage 2 just to see if maybe 4 was the only one that was good. And no, that game was equally as fun, so I guess I've just been living under a rock this whole time. I find it really impressive that this game managed to keep me entertained despite playing it solo the entire time, since this genre really benefits from having a buddy to play with. I really want to talk more about this game, but I would just start devolving into rambling about nothing, so I think I'll just say that Streets of Rage 4 is good, so play it.
Alright, it's time to check out how you did today. Now let's take a look. Classes, license. Man, that was amazing driving. I'm sure you're gonna come by and show it to me again sometime, right? Here we go.